Here's going to be the number one car tip for most of you people out there that are driving newer vehicles within the last, let's just say, 10 years. A lot of these vehicles now have upwards of 50 plus modules on board. Some of them all the way up to like 80 to 100, depending on how sophisticated your car is, how luxurious it is. And a lot of these battery manufacturers have went down on the quality of the batteries. You used to have a battery that would easily last 5 to 7 years. It wasn't uncommon to see a battery last longer than 7 years, even up to 10 years sometimes. But now we're lucky if we get 3 or 4 years out of batteries. The quality has went downhill substantially. And brand new batteries in brand new cars, we're simply finding just aren't very great sometimes. Specifically, whenever I'm looking at a Volkswagen and there's a specific type of battery with a specific number on it, and technicians have had a string of problems with these particular batteries, they say, look, if we look down and it says EFB plus or just EFB, I forget what it is, we replace the battery. We don't even chance it because it sets communication codes, it sets all kinds of codes, and the battery itself is the problem. It's not the actual car. And a lot of times, in a lot of situations, more common than not, the battery itself is the very reason why you're having the problems that you're having. So I was even specifically looking at an issue with a Chrysler. I was watching a video on a Chrysler, and the guy said, you know what I did to get rid of my random misfire code? And it was so weird. He said, I had a P0300 code setting on this Grand Caravan that I was driving. I think it was the 3.6 Pentastar. He said it just would set all the time, and there was nothing wrong with it. The cylinders weren't misfiring. The ignition coils were all brand new. The spark plugs were all brand new. But for some reason, the computer didn't like something that it was seeing, and it was misfiring. How the car got fixed? We pulled the battery out, the main battery out, and the auxiliary battery out, and we replaced the auxiliary battery and the main battery and reset everything. No more P0300 code. Why is a P0300 code, random cylinder misfire code, being set by battery power it's just like, why? But that's what it took to fix this. They were chasing everything, but whatever it had to do with that battery, that auxiliary battery and the main battery, it did not like. And it was setting some erroneous code in the computer that had nothing to do with the situation that was going on with the battery. But that's what was setting. Another situation, customer comes in and she's like, I went to go put the vehicle in park, and I put it in park, it engaged park, and then all of a sudden, nothing. The vehicle started to roll back, and I didn't know what to do, so I pushed the parking brake and I stopped the vehicle. Then I had it towed to the dealer here. So the mechanic, the trans tech, gets the car up in the air, pulls the transmission out, pulls it apart, because he's something inside is not, it's set an outer limits code for the dual motor in this Focus. It has a dual solenoid trans module that are known for going bad in these things, and there's a solenoid that sweeps back and forth, and it finds its position based on the aluminum casting stops that are made inside the trans half. And when the lady went to go put the vehicle in park, it couldn't find its position. Why could it not find its position? Well, when the trans tech was testing the battery out, the battery failed. It had like 28% charge, and it had super high resistance inside the battery, and it was junk. What ends up happening is that battery needs to supply enough voltage to that module, so whenever you go put that vehicle in park and turn the key off, it needs to sweep back and forth and find its stop, sweep the other way and find its stop, and then it'll sweep back, or maybe it'll do multiple times, and that's how it finds what position it's supposed to be in, and it knows how to park itself, and everything just goes to sleep nice and kosher, right? Well, when the battery starts to go bad in those cars, that stop will beat into the side of the case where those stops are, or the solenoid will, and it will just hammer into the side of the case because it doesn't have efficient power and stuff to normally sweep, come back, sweep, park. It will just beat into the case of that housing until it breaks that ear off, and then it will just go out of limits, and it'll read such a huge percent, all because the defective battery that's in the car, because the lady had this thing in there for like 5 years, and she just chose not to go get it tested. She never kept up on the maintenance of, like, going over things, and she had stopped going to a dealership because of the price at the dealership, and she was going to a local independent shop, and that local independent shop did a fairly decent job so far, but they didn't really have the rotunda testers and stuff like that we have to actually fully do a load test on the battery to figure out what type of health condition that it's in. They just had generic testers, which they kind of work, but they don't work. And it ended up biting her because she didn't keep up with the maintenance. She didn't go to a place that had updated, reputable tools to test certain things to keep up with the health of that vehicle. And it cost her several $1,000s to have a new trans half. He had to buy a half of a trans shell, the casing, reinstall everything, and then while he was there, he cleaned everything up. It didn't need clutches or anything like that. All that still worked good, so that the dual clutch system was fine. Those are known for going bad as well. Put everything back together with a good battery, and bingo, no more problems. Literally, I almost would say it's the number one most important thing on that vehicle is the condition of the battery. And with us going into wintertime and it already being cold outside right now, your battery should be your number one focus before winter hits and things get out of control, if it hasn't hit in a lot of the states that you're watching this from already. Service the battery in your vehicle. And just because the battery tests good doesn't mean it is good. You'll get little fine line cracks around those posts in the plastic of the battery, and it'll start to build up corrosion and stuff on those terminals, and it'll eat those terminals, and before you know it, you will have a no crank no start because the terminal literally will snap or corrode in half. It happens a lot on the 3.5 liters in the Explorers and the Ford Tauruses, where the batteries develop a crack around the post, and it starts leaching acid slowly out onto the post, corroding, and it will literally eat through the entire terminal face. And in order to fix that, what they want you to do is they want you to replace the entire power supply wiring harness, because they don't want to splice into the harness. But in all reality, there's nothing wrong with splicing into the harness. You just get a small section of cable, you crimp a new eyelid on, you actually get the fuse. Instead of for an Explorer or a Taurus, you look up like an Lincoln, like a 2006, 2017 Lincoln MKX or something like that, MKC, that has that same fused assembly that goes onto that post. And you can actually order it for that, which is the same as for the Explorer and the Taurus, except they don't show it as an available part on the Ford and the Taurus. But it's the same exact part that's on the Lincoln. You can order it for the Lincoln and then snap it into place, and then get your new cable in, put a cable eyelid and stuff on it, and then use a big collar that locks in battery cable that's heavy gauge. Put a nice big thick piece of heat shrink over it, splice into that cable, do a proper repair, get that vehicle back on the road, put a new battery in it, because the reason that corrosion's building up is because of the cracks around the plastic where the post goes through, and you're back in business. Battery health, battery condition, I would argue, is one of the most important, if not the most important part of your vehicle, and you don't realize how important it actually is. Thanks for watching. Sorry this was so long.